Clarkston, Michigan, the greatest city in the world. It's the Jose Aliaga Show. Jose Aliaga knows everyone. Get to know him as he interviews some of the most fascinating people from the greater Independence Township area. And now, broadcasting from the studios at Clarkston High School, the home of the state champion Wolves, here's Jose Aliaga.
Welcome to the Jose Aliaga Show. Today we have an exciting guest. He wrote a book. The name of the book is Holding Hands with God. Very remarkable story. And our guest today is Mr. Jimmie Chiappelli. How you doing?
Fine. How are you doing, sir?
Good, good.
Good.
Nice to have you here.
My pleasure.
And it's an honor and privilege to have you here. And most of the people that are watching today probably know who is Jimmie Chiappelli because your family is well known in Clarkston.
That's true.
Oakland County. And you were born and raised in Oakland County, right?
Yes.
Where?
I was born in the south side of Pontiac, 314 Prospect to be exact.
You know, a lot of people know that the Chiappelli family, you guys, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 8 sisters and 1 brother.
Oh, okay. Oh, I saw you guys were 2 brothers. You have 2 brothers or just?
Just 1 brother.
Oh, 1 brother. Okay,
And
okay.
he passed away in last September.
Oh, sorry to hear that. I see. So, a lot of people probably wonder about your book, and your book is very much about faith, about
Yes.
that you believe in God.
Yes.
What church are you going?
I'm affiliated with Mount Zion in Clarkston, Michigan.
Okay. And that's Pastor Lauren Covarrubias,
That's
right?
correct.
And you told me that Pastor Lauren endorsed this book.
Yes, he does.
Great. And can you tell us what is the book about?
This book actually is about my conversion from atheism and evolution to a strong belief in God.
I see. Now, when we talk of atheism, you know, in the political standpoint, atheism, and most people that are atheists, are communists. Communists believe that they believe in what they can see or what they can touch. So they don't believe in God because they believe that they cannot see God, they cannot touch God. What do you think about that?
Well, actually, faith is something, even though you can't see it, you can see the results of faith. And those results are certainly tangible. You can see them in your children, you can see them in your life and your lifestyle. So certainly, even though we don't think they're tangible, they are certainly tangible, something that we can grab hold of.
I see. I do believe in God.
Yes.
I'm going to many years to Mount Zion as well, and I see how faith changed my life and improved my life as well. So this book talks about your personal experience, and you mentioned with your former wife, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you feel God helped you? What is your experience with faith?
Well, quite a few years ago, in my conversion process, when I was didn't believe in God, I believed in myself. I believed that people who believed in God, I felt that was a crutch that they needed to get them through. Later, in an experience, a personal experience I had with the Lord Jesus Christ, when He appeared to me, and He made Himself real and tangible to me. And I was married to someone that actually didn't believe in God. And when she was around 52 years old, she had a brain aneurysm. And she was killed. She died immediately, and
So what happened? She just, she got a stroke or?
yeah, it was an brain aneurysm.
Oh, brain injury. Okay.
And it's similar to a stroke, and they call it a stroke. However, it was a massive bleed in her brain that stopped her heart immediately.
Oh. So when that happened, what you did?
I immediately turned her over and started giving her CPR.
Oh, okay.
And I asked for God's guidance. I gave her CPR until she took a breath, and then as soon as she took a breath, I called 911, and the fire department was only probably 150 yards away from my house, so they were there within 3 minutes.
Oh, good to hear.
So they took over the CPR, but she did die several times on the way to the hospital. And then when she arrived at the hospital, she was what's called DOA, dead on arrival. And she was resuscitated at that point and put on life support.
And that was talk for, you mentioned when she was in life support, what happened?
Well, during that time, when she was in life support, the doctor came to me and told me he wanted to do surgery on her brain. And I told him, I gave my consent, and he told me flat out there was very little possibility for her to recover because of the massive bleed, and that the blood had infiltrated half of her brain, so half of her brain would not function at all ever. So he did the surgery, and then he came out and told me that her chances of survival were very, very slim. And later, a few days later, some other doctors came and told me that she had no brain activity, and that if I needed to take her off of life support and let her go.
Oh, that was probably terrible news.
That was very devastating, and so I said, I can't answer this question without, I have to seek God and ask God what He wants me to do in this situation. See, because I learned that my decisions that I made in my life weren't all that great, but when God told me and gave me direction, that made a difference in my life.
And probably in many people's life.
Yes. So I sought God about it, and I asked Him point blank, Lord, what do you want me to do? Should I take her off life support? And He said, no. So I went back and I said, no, she's not coming off life support.
And what the doctor said?
They said, you're wasting your time. It's not going to make any difference, whether you take her off now or take her off a month from now.
And what you told him you don't want that.
I said, God said no.
And what happened?
Well, it was like a roller coaster ride for 29 days for me, spiritually as well as emotionally. But through that time period, I was able to connect so close to God that God was speaking to me just like we're talking here together right now. And during that time period, He told me many things. And one of the things that He told me, I told Him, I said, Lord, they said that she can't recover because her brain is half gone. And He said, I created the brain. Do you think I can't recreate her? So at the end of 29 days, I walked into the hospital to take her off life support. And I leaned over the bed to say my goodbyes, and she woke up on the 29th day.
So she woke up just when you came and you were
Yes.
saying goodbye, and
Yes,
she wake up.
yes.
And she recognized you right away? I mean, it was...
I'm not sure if she recognized me.
Yeah, because, I mean, the doctor told you that if she wake up, she won't be able to recognize anyone. I mean,
Well, and that kind of scared me because I'm thinking, Lord, maybe they were right. Maybe I should have taken her off. She doesn't know who I am. I was pretty sure she didn't recognize me. Because she looked at me like I was a stranger. And then the nurse that was taking care of her, one of the nurses in the ICU that was monitoring her on a 24 hours a day, she came in and asked some questions. Actually, one of my sons and one of my daughter-in-laws came in, and the nurse walked over to my son and said, she put her hand on his shoulder and said, "Is this your daughter?" And my wife said, "Yes." And then she put her hand on my daughter-in-law and said, "Is this your son?" And my wife shook her head, yes. She couldn't talk. And the nurse looked at me and said, "I told you so. You should have let her go." She told me, she said, "Now you're going to spend the rest of your life caring for an invalid." So
it's a difficult...
it was very, very difficult. She couldn't recognize a comb even at first.
When you say at first, what happened later then?
Well, as I continued to seek God, knowing that even though I had, I was on an emotional and spiritual roller coaster ride, I still was trusting God because I heard what He said, even though my human instincts was saying maybe they were right, but the spiritual part of me was saying, I said what the Lord said, I said what I said, I mean what I said. So I continued to seek God, and my wife couldn't hold herself up. I would pick her up out of bed and set her in a wheelchair and tie her up because she couldn't sit on her own. And I would take her to her therapy. And the doctors and the therapists told me that it was a waste of time even to have therapy. But as we were in therapy, God started speaking to me, and He started telling me some things to do. And one day while we were there, my wife had gone down to about 82 pounds because she hadn't eaten, and she had been being fed intravenously. And so she was really light for me. And so I was sitting there, and there was, when you and I were listening to those 60s music
yes.
On the way here, it was like one of those songs came on, actually the song that you had on.
Okay. Oh.
And the Lord said, "I want you to go pick her up out of her chair and dance with her." And I said, "Well, Lord, I'm not going to do that. She can't even move." And He said, He didn't say anything, but so I knew I had to do I had to be obedient. So I walked over to the wheelchair, I untied her, I picked her up, and started dancing around the floor with her. And as I did, it was within a few minutes, she started trying to move her feet.
Oh, wow.
And one of the therapists noticed that she noticed it. So I continued to do it. I kept dancing around with her for a long period of time. And the longer we danced, the more mobile she became and started moving her feet.
Wow.
And so every day we would do that, and every day she started getting better. And finally, the therapist came over and he said, "Would you mind if I worked with your wife?" And I said, "Not at all." Well, actually, that was their job. And so every day, for a 6-week period, she got better and better. Now, one of her hands was completely paralyzed, her left hand. And that was healed miraculously. God healed that right on the spot. The therapist said she will probably never have use of that hand again. And in front of him, I actually prayed for her hand, and it was healed immediately, right in his presence. One of the therapists.
Wow. And what the therapist says?
He said, "Wow."
Wow.
So then they started working with her hand. They put it in sand, and she had to move it in the sand. And then another day we were saying, she said, the Lord said, "Pick up this ball and throw it to her." I said, "That's not a good idea." So I picked up the ball, and real nonchalantly I pitched the ball to her, and the ball hit her right in the face. And I thought, "Wow, Lord, I don't think that was you saying that." And he said, "Do it again." But I could see she had gotten angry with me because I hit her. She was starting to show some emotion. And so I did it again, and it hit her again. I said, "Wow, I'm not doing that again." And he said, "Do it again." So I picked up the ball, and I tossed it to her again. And just before it got to her, her arm that was paralyzed before, she went like this and blocked the ball from hitting her.
Oh, okay.
And within a few minutes, she started catching the ball with both hands and throwing it back to me. She started playing catch.
Wow, incredible. And the therapist and the doctors told you that your wife won't be able to recognize, won't be able to
That's
have
right.
a mobility.
That's
then
right.
the left arm was completely dead.
That's correct.
But after your relationship with God, and God told you to do some things that in the beginning probably for some people probably don't make sense, but you believe on it, you believe in the word, you walk through, and your wife was be able to recover. I mean, very much.
Well, even though
Very well.
even though my faith wasn't always what it should be, I was still obedient to what I felt God's truth is. And even one day, the first few days, I went home to change clothes because I hadn't showered in a few days. And when I walked in the house, my children had arrived from out of town. We were actually in another state. And my children had arrived at the airport. Someone picked them up. And so I walked into the house, and they said, and the doctors had just given me the news that she would never recover. And I walked in, and they jumped up and came and mobbed me, you know how your children do. And they said, "How is Mom?" And I started to say, "Your mother's not going to make it." But the Lord said, "Tell them that everything is well." And everything's going perfect. So I said exactly what He said to say. Not what I wanted to say, but I said what He said to say.
I see. And it's incredible because you saying in the beginning you were atheist, and you
Yes.
didn't believe in God. How your life went through from the beginning to now when you are a strong believer in God?
Well, I had aspired to a place in my life where I felt that I had control over everything in my life. I believe that, like I said previously, people who believed in God and trusted God for their sustenance and for everything, I thought that they were just a weak people. who needed a crutch to get them through. And I know my sister one time, she asked me, she said, she started talking about God, and this was prior to my time that I was, my conversion, and I told her point blank, I said, listen, if you want to see God, take a look at me. I'm God. And so, but here's the thing, from that point forward, things started to change in my life. And things, I was kind of out of control. I was into things that I shouldn't be into, and my life wasn't, it was starting to unravel. So, as I shared with you earlier, and you'll see it and you'll read it in my book, my conversion was a very dramatic conversion. And the only thing that could have convinced me, because of who I am, was that type of conversion. And the conversion was, which I explained to you earlier, and that I went to bed, and I asked the Lord, I said, if there's anything, any such thing as God, that you will have to reveal yourself to me. And at that point in time in my life, I needed him. He knew that that was the point in time that he was going to reach out and grab me and bring me into the kingdom. So that night, when I made that statement, immediately, I know you're going to think I'm crazy. No, you won't think I'm crazy, because you're a believer.
Yes.
Okay. This tremendous light came into my room where I was praying, or I don't know if I was praying or just talking, because I wasn't really sure what prayer was. And I knew immediately who it was. And the light was so bright that you could not look at the light. I couldn't see what he looked like, but as he walked over to me, or I don't know if he walked or if he floated, I don't know how he got next to me, but he laid his hand on my shoulder, and as he laid my hand on my shoulder, I felt immediately a peace and a rest that I had never felt before. It was total rest. And he said, he didn't say too much to me, but he said, you pray for my presence, and you're not ready for my presence. So prepare yourself for my presence. At first I thought, well, I must be going to die or something, because you got to prepare yourself for my presence. But that's not at all what he meant. So I thought, okay, from this point forward, I'll seek you. So every night, for a long period of time, I was, we only got 5 minutes left.
I know. I know.
For a long time, he appeared to me, and I felt that he was holding my hands. So came the name of the book, Holding Hands with God.
Oh, that's why the name of the book.
That's how it came about.
I see. And now you just mentioned when we were driving here that you have a ministry with your wife, right?
Yes, yes.
And what is
It's called Miracle Ministries.
Oh, okay. And then you have a website, or I mean, first of all, before we go to the website, you have you teach in the church, or?
I do not teach in the church. I've worked as an evangelist throughout all 48 states, and now my wife Karen passed away 3 years ago, and I have remarried. And my wife Connie and I are getting ready to embark on a evangelistic crusade across all the United States. Well, we're going to try to stay in the warm climates.
Yeah,
So I always tease my cousin Lauren. I said, the Lord only calls me to warm places. I'm his favorite.
It's good. So now, if some people are interested and they want more information about your book, because it's a remarkable story about how you, from atheist, become a strong believer, and your remarkable story about how God healed your wife, and I think a lot of people would like to read your book. You have a website, I believe, or a Facebook page? Or
If you need any information about my book, you can email me at jlchiappelli@aol.com.
Okay.
And I'll be glad to respond to any of your questions that you have.
So right there is an email. Can you tell us again the email?
jlchiappelli@aol.com.
Okay. I think you have also a website or Facebook page or something?
You can reach me on Facebook.
Okay.
And you'll see my Facebook is J. Chiappelli. So go on Facebook and you'll find me right there. And you should be able to access my book page there as well, which is, it'll be under Holding Hands with God. Remember that. We all should be holding hands with God. So you'll remember that name, Holding Hands with God.
Yeah. And you don't have a website, right?
I do not have a website yet.
Okay, but through Facebook, I know if you go to search on Facebook and type his name, Jimmie Chiappelli, you will be able to see his Facebook. You can send a private message and get more information about his book. His book is a very good book, good material, and actually is a good for people that want to see what God is doing in our community. And it's a remarkable story about what happened, how God healed his wife and walked through. And I know you told me that you have also prophesied about your life, that
Yes.
you're going to be minister around.
Yes, that I would minister to, actually I would be a minister to ministers. I am older, so I minister to younger pastors.
Okay.
And that's part of my ministry, actually.
I hope maybe after you come back from your trip down south, we can have a second interview to talk about what happened and what happened down in...
Jose, that would be my pleasure.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. And
Thank you.
I enjoy a lot the interview today.
God bless you, and God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you. And for everyone that wants to be in the show, in the Jose Aliaga show, please feel free to contact us on Facebook to the Jose Aliaga show. You have any comment or anything you want to say, please feel free to write a comment and like us our page on Facebook. And also you can call us at 248-736-7163. It's right there, 248-736-7163. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Adios.